Council tax is nothing but state-sponsored extortion, a vile criminal racket dressed up as lawful governance. It's a mafia-style protection scheme where local councils, bloated, incompetent, and morally bankrupt, shake down the very people they're supposed to serve. All while hiding behind unlawful administrative courts and gutless magistrates who rubber-stamp their crimes. Meanwhile, in the UK, we're facing the worst cost of living crisis in modern history. Food prices are obscene, energy bills have doubled, wages are stagnant, and people are choosing between heating their homes or feeding their children. And yet, the councils, these snivelling, parasitic entities, have the audacity to send out their council tax demands as if we're living in some golden era of prosperity. Let's call this out for what it is: a cold, calculated attack on working class families, pensioners, and the financially struggling. Council tax is built on a blatant lie. The core principle of contract law states that for any debt to be enforceable, there must be a signed contract between two consenting parties, a fair exchange of value, full disclosure of the terms. Council tax meets none of these. The councils never provide a signed agreement proving you owe them anything. Instead, they rely on assumed consent, which is fraud, deception, and theft. They send out demands, and if you don't challenge them, they claim you've agreed to pay. That's not law, it's legal trickery used by scammers. The councils love to talk about legal enforcement, but here's the truth. The courts they use to enforce council tax are not real courts. Administrative courts have no legal standing. The council acts as the prosecutor, judge, and debt collector, a blatant conflict of interest. They issue their own bogus liability orders, backed by nothing but rubber-stamp magistrates who are nothing more than council puppets. These aren't lawful proceedings. They're a scam designed to manufacture debt, using fake court hearings to trick people into believing they've been lawfully ordered to pay. Let's talk about the cowards, liars, and bullies who enforce this scam: council finance officers, overpaid desk jockeys who sit in offices sending out threats to people who can't afford food, let alone a tax they never agreed to. Bailiffs, thugs in cheap suits who prey on the vulnerable, making threats they have no lawful authority to carry out. Spineless magistrates. They don't apply the law, they serve the council, rubber-stamping liability orders by the thousands without even looking at the cases. Elected councillors, useless, self-serving parasites who refuse to challenge the system because they personally benefit from it. And what are these people doing while families are being driven into homelessness, debt, and despair? They're paying themselves six-figure salaries, wasting taxpayer money on vanity projects and awarding contracts to their mates' companies. Right now in Britain, millions are struggling to buy food. Pensioners are freezing in their homes because energy bills are extortionate. Wages have not kept up with inflation, and rents are sky high. Businesses are collapsing because no one has any money to spend. And what do the heartless, greedy councils do? Increase council tax yet again. Threaten struggling people with bankruptcy, wage deductions, and prison. Hire even more bailiffs to hound the vulnerable. They do not care that people are suffering. They do not care that families can't afford school uniforms, heating, or even a decent meal. All they care about is extracting every last penny from people who already have nothing. Council tax is enforced through fraud, deception, and fear. But you have rights, no contract, no obligation. Demand a signed contract proving you agreed to pay. They won't be able to provide one. Administrative courts are unlawful. Refuse to recognize any liability order unless it's issued by a common law court with a jury. Extortion is a crime. Threatening people with financial ruin to force payment is illegal under the Fraud Act 2006. Enough is enough. The people must fight back. It's time to stop tolerating this robbery. The councils, their corrupt courts, and their spineless enforcers must be called out, exposed, and brought to justice. The government is failing us, the councils are robbing us, and the system is broken beyond repair. We do not owe them anything, and we must stop paying into a system that exists only to keep us in financial chains. Council tax is not law, it is a scam. And like all scams, it only works if people comply. It's time to say no, to stand our ground, and to fight back against these thieves in suits.